Before we dive into this mind-bending tale of ancient bonds and courtroom justice across the stars, hit that like button if you believe humanity holds secrets even the galaxies have forgotten. Comment your theories as the story unfolds, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories where humanity doesn't just survive, it rewrites the rules. The star outside the tribunal chamber pulsed with the color of dying sapphire, its last light filtered through a lattice of crystalline glass and refracted across the obsidian walls. The chamber was shaped like a blade's edge, sharp, angular, and unforgiving. It had hosted the sentencing of warlords, warbringers, and planetary tyrants. But never a predator. Never one of them. Elias Ward stood alone behind the witness barrier, arms behind his back, boots locked tight, spine straight. The galactic flags flickered beside him, irrelevant theater. He wasn't here for spectacle. He was here because something impossible had survived, and even more impossibly had spoken his name. From across the chamber the creature knelt. Shackled with neutron thread restraints and sealed behind a shifting energy field, its body was a fusion of sinew, armored bone, and darkness. Its head was crowned with dreadlocked tendrils like coiled serpents, its jaw lined with gleaming fangs. Its name in the court file was Zarkun, though many just called it what it was. A predator. It had torn through 3 colonies in less than a cycle, leaving behind blood-slick metal and silence. Children gone. Cities scorched. Bodies half dissolved. 17 species filed charges. 47 demanded execution. The human delegation abstained. Elias had said nothing. Until now. The tribunal judges hovered like frozen monuments. 12 of them, each a legacy species from the first wave of civilization. High Judge Vorthax floated at the center, its translucent mantle curling in slow, thoughtful patterns. Its voice came not through sound but through thought, translated directly into the minds of all present. We summon Commander Elias Ward, Earth designation. Survivor of the Dralek 4 incident. You may begin. Elias stepped forward. His boots echoed like a gunshot in a mausoleum. The silence that followed was worse. Name, the judge said again though they already knew it. Commander Elias Ward. Earthborn. 73rd Terran Expeditionary Corps. Your statement. Regarding the being designated Zarkun. Elias's jaw flexed once, a small twitch, the only betrayal of tension. He looked at the creature, locked in chains that shimmered with antikinetic energy, powerful enough to hold a neutron star wraith. Zarkun didn't look at him. But it hurt. Of course it hurt. I encountered the subject during Operation Fall Lantern on Dralek 4, Elias said. We had received an anomalous signal, high-frequency pulses suggesting deep vault technology under the old jungles. We deployed with a fire team of 6. Contact was made 3 hours after planetary descent. He paused. All 6 men were dead within 20 minutes. Except me. A murmur rippled through the observers' galleries, low voices, clicks, gasps, pulses of bioluminescence from species that had no mouths. Elias heard none of it. His eyes were still locked on the predator. And yet you survived, said Prosecutor Malzek, his voice like sharpened steel against glass. His many eyes blinked in unsynchronized rhythm. Curious. Perhaps you hid. I didn't. Perhaps you fled. Or perhaps, Commander, the predator spared you. For reasons of strategy. Or perhaps collusion. Elias's silence was not defensive. It was quiet like thunder waiting behind a mountain. I didn't run. I didn't collude. I bled out in a temple made of bone and vines, 3 kilometers from the kill zone. The only reason I'm alive is because the thing you want to execute carried me there. And didn't kill me. Malzek hissed. So, you admit it spared you. Selectively. Yet the thousands it tore apart, children, soldiers, civilians, were not given the same mercy. I admit it spared me, Elias said. I do not know why. Then the court will decide for you, said another judge. This one's voice was a flanged chorus of male harmonics, deep and echoing. Do you dispute the facts presented? The colony was annihilated. The blood signature matches Zarkun. There were no other survivors. The sentence demanded his death. A second voice joined, harder, impatient. If you have no exonerating data or memory fragment for submission, Commander, your testimony ends. Elias should have stood down. Should have said his last line, signed the transcript, and left the way soldiers do after loss. But he didn't. He stepped closer to the projection field. Just enough that the predator's face became visible through the light distortion. Its eyes weren't dead. They weren't feral either. They were waiting. Elias spoke a word. Soft. Barely audible. A single syllable that did not exist in any current language database. A word that hummed with strange consonants and hollow vowels. A word that did not belong to this time. The chamber reacted instantly. The lights dimmed. A faint tremor passed through the grav stabilizers. Some of the tribunal members flinched or leaned back. Malzek reeled as if struck. Zarkon raised its head. Its eyes burned suddenly, fiercely, not with rage, but with recognition. The field between them pulsed once. Then twice. And then the chains holding the predator began to vibrate, not with energy, but with memory. What did you say? Vorthax's voice buzzed across the chamber like panic wrapped in protocol. Elias didn't answer. He was staring at the predator and the predator was staring back. A third voice filled the chamber. Zarkon spoke. For the first time in the trial. Its voice was like stone grinding against magma. Deep, broken, ancient. It repeated the same word Elias had whispered. Then it added two more. Thel. Kashran. The lights above the tribunal pulsed out of sync. The ancient court AI registered an unauthorized linguistic event. Glyphs began crawling across the curved walls, unbidden. Not current galactic text. Something older. Something buried. Commander, Malzek hissed, half-rising, limbs twitching. That word is not registered in any known dialect. Explain yourself. Immediately. I can't, Elias said slowly. I only remembered it last night. I heard it in my dreams. And before that, on Dralek 4. Carved into the walls. The predator didn't speak it back then. But it recognized it. And what does it mean? Elias looked toward the judges. And then back to the predator. Means, he who remembers the first flame. The words hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Vorthax turned toward his fellow judges. 4 of them were already deep in silent neural conversation, their membranes flickering. One of them, the Zalorthian archivist, was weeping fluid from all 5 eyes. The word had unlocked something. Impossible, another judge muttered. That language was erased. It predates the Galactic Core Treaty by over 50,000 cycles. Commander Ward, Vorthax said carefully. Where did you learn this? I didn't, Elias said. It learned me. The predator stood. It didn't growl. It didn't snarl. It didn't fight the field. It simply stood, tall and still, as if the word had changed something in its bones. The projection field adjusted itself around the creature rather than resist it. The court security systems flared briefly, then shut off. Malzek activated his stinger blade, a defensive reaction. It's breaking control. No, Elias said without turning. It's remembering. Remembering what? Elias looked at the predator. And this time it looked human. A shadow. A guardian. Not prey. Not predator. An echo. The court trembled again, softer now, like a sleeping giant turning in its grave. Behind Elias, holographic screens flashed. Temples, glyphs, solar flares burning in mirrored eyes. A distant, old memory surfacing from species' deep subconscious. The trial was no longer about justice. It was about history. And Elias wasn't just a witness. He was the key. He walked forward, slowly, as the court held its collective breath. Don't do this, Malzek snarled. This is manipulation. That creature's a butcher. Don't give it myth. It never asked for myth, Elias said. You gave it that name. Predator. Executioner. Monster. But it had another name. Long before we learned to write. And how do you know that name's real? Elias stopped within a foot of the energy field. Because when I said it, he whispered, I remembered it too. And from within the field, Zarkon bowed its head. Not in defeat, but in recognition. Of him. Of the word. Of the bond neither of them should have been able to feel. Yet here it was. And it was just beginning. The air inside the tribunal chamber had turned still, as if reality itself was hesitant to proceed. Even the automated filtration system, usually a steady whisper in the background, fell quiet. The word Elias had spoken lingered like a sacred echo, coiling around the rafters of memory buried beneath centuries of order. The predator stood perfectly upright behind the shimmer of the field, chains humming with soft resonance. The eyes that glowed within that alien skull no longer seemed wild. They seemed ancient. A ripple moved through the tribunal's ranks. One of the judges, the Osirian archivist named Coltran, slowly descended from his levitation pod and activated an artifact long sealed, a flat stone etched in patterns unknown to modern syntactic AI. When exposed to the air, the glyphs began to pulse in golden waves, reacting to the word Elias had spoken. All 12 judges turned to watch. The prosecutor hissed in frustration. That's enough, Malzek barked, mandibles flared wide. This trial has become contaminated by mysticism and obsolete language. We must conclude before further damage. No, said Vorthax with an audible weight that silenced the room. This is no longer just a trial. This is a reawakening. Elias took a slow breath. He hadn't expected the word to work. He hadn't known it would summon something living in his marrow, something older than even his fear of the predator. And now, standing in the very place designed to deliver judgment across stars, he was starting to remember. I want it on record, Elias said, voice calm but deliberate, that I do not speak in the creature's defense for pity nor sentiment. I speak because I believe the truth we're ignoring will return to devour us all. The room absorbed his words like oxygen before fire. Then he continued. I'll submit a recorded testimony from Dralek 4, he said. Unfiltered. Fragmented. But real. The chamber dimmed as the holographic projectors activated, and the past began to bleed into the present. Dralek 4 unfolded like a wet fever dream. The trees were wide and black-veined, leaves the size of shuttle wings. Blue mist crept between ancient ruins overgrown with bioluminescent fungi and symbols carved in geometry that bent the mind to look at. Elias's recorded voice crackled in the playback. Mission timestamp, Day 3. Lost contact with Alpha and Bravo teams. Lieutenant Harrow's armor is sealed, but he's not breathing. I found him under a shrine carved in bone. Some of the carvings resemble early Terran myths. The word Kashran is etched repeatedly like a chant. It's familiar, but I've never seen it before. The memory flickered. Next frame. A bleeding Elias dragged himself through dark corridors, his pulse erratic, the sound of heavy footsteps behind him. A snarl. Then silence. I should have died there, Elias said softly as the playback dimmed. But it found me. It didn't finish what it started. It picked me up and brought me into the inner vault of the shrine. And then it just waited. The hologram shifted again, this time to a still frame. The predator crouched beside Elias's wounded body. Its claws retracted. Its breathing shallow. Behind them, strange machines pulsed faintly with orange light. I passed out from blood loss. But something happened while I was unconscious. I don't remember a dream, not exactly. I remember images. I saw stars colliding. Planets burning. But I also saw figures, humanoid, fighting beside beings just like Zarkin. Together. Not as prey. As allies. A hallucination, Malzek spat. Neurological decay due to trauma. Nothing more. No, Elias said. Because when I woke up, the glyphs in the shrine were glowing. And I could read them. The silence that followed was total. Even the predator didn't move. I never learned those symbols, Elias continued. No human has. And yet I knew every curve, every phrase. Not because I was taught. Because something deep in my DNA remembered. And when I read them aloud, the creature kneeled. Why didn't you submit this immediately? Vorthax asked. Because I didn't believe it. I thought it was madness. Then I started dreaming of the same flame every night. And when I came to this chamber and saw its eyes again, I realized, the dream never ended. Coltran, the archivist judge, finally spoke. His voice was tired and hollow. The glyphs on the tribunal's outer walls, until this cycle no one recognized them. They've been there since the station's founding. I now see they match what was found on Dralek 4. Word for word. The phrase you said, appears here too. Elias looked up. His chest tightened. The first flame? Exactly, the judge nodded slowly. The phrase predates galactic civilization. It was theorized to be a cultural metaphor. But perhaps it is more than that. It was a pact, Elias said. The dream told me. The flame wasn't fire. It was unity. A joining of two species, one of instinct, one of will. Humanity and the predators fought together once. Against something neither could fight alone. Prosecutor Malzek hissed in open disdain. This is fantasy. Romantic delusion. Even if such a pact existed, it ended. And this creature, this beast, has broken every code of sentience we hold sacred. You cannot redeem it with bedtime stories. Elias didn't answer. He turned back to Zarkin. Why did you spare me? He asked directly. The predator tilted its head. Slowly it raised one hand, fingers splayed. And in a voice that shook the entire chamber, it spoke again. You are the flame-born. The lights dimmed. From the walls, the ancient glyphs glowed in sequence. A circular pattern formed in the center of the chamber, beneath Elias's feet. The tribunal's protective protocols activated, but instead of locking down the creature, They formed a dome around both man and predator. "What is this?" one judge whispered. Coltrane was already weeping again. "It's a recognition field," he said. "A failsafe built into the tribunal itself. It activates only if a pact bond is renewed." Malzek pounded a fist into his station. "This cannot stand. We cannot halt justice based on forgotten myths and psychic echoes. The creature must answer for its crimes." Elias's voice cut through the tension like a blade. What if they weren't crimes? The chamber exploded into uproar. Elias didn't flinch. Neither did Zarkun. He raised a hand. "Hear me out. What if those colonies weren't just slaughtered for sport? What if Zarkun was hunting something else?" "That's ridiculous." "There were no bodies left whole," Elias continued. "No DNA to fully reconstruct. All disintegrated. But not eaten. Dissolved. That pattern wasn't rage. It was containment." A different judge, silent until now, spoke with a gravelly tremor. "There were rumors that Dralic IV's last transmission wasn't a distress call. It was a frequency anomaly. Organic signals folding space in impossible ways. We assumed sensor malfunction." "You assumed wrong," Elias said. "The predator was purging infected hosts. Something had already infiltrated the colony. Zarkun was the scalpel, not the cancer." Malzek turned toward the judges. "This entire event is an abomination of legal process. He offers no proof, only prophecy. Trial by flame? Dreams of ancient alliances? This is madness." Vorthax leaned forward. "And yet," he said, voice like a cracked bell, "our ancestors built this station using those very symbols. Why design the court of ultimate law with forgotten language? Why build it in orbit around a dying star that burns the same hue as the ancient flameborn glyphs? Why, unless they meant for this moment to come again?" The chamber stilled once more. Elias walked forward. The dome followed him. He stood face to face with the predator. "I didn't come here to free you," he said. "I came here to understand why I couldn't let you die." The predator lowered its massive head, forehead just inches from Elias's. Its voice, barely more than a whisper this time, rippled with ancient resonance. "You are not prey." "No," Elias whispered. "I'm the other half of the weapon." The glyph beneath them blazed with golden fire. The first flame was real, and it had just been reignited. The dome of golden light held firm, not as a prison but as a cocoon, pulsing in slow, silent rhythm like a colossal heartbeat echoing from another age. The judges no longer argued. They watched, unmoving, transfixed as Elias and the predator stood within that ancient pattern etched into the tribunal floor. Nothing was scripted anymore. The trial had bled into something ungoverned by law or species or politics. This was deeper, older. The chamber hadn't just remembered. It had awakened. The glyphs along the ceiling rotated in concentric rings, each glowing symbol syncing with the next like the clicking gears of a universal lock finally turning. Data streams flooded the air, not just from the tribunal's archives but from long-sealed vaults, files previously inaccessible even to the highest-ranked AI. The entire tribunal station was transforming. Elias could feel it in the floor beneath his boots, in the charged air brushing his skin. The space no longer belonged to the present. He turned toward the judges, his voice steady despite the impossible weight pressing down around him. "You asked for evidence. The tribunal itself just provided it." Coltrane had collapsed to his knees, his trembling hands held out toward the dome as though in prayer. The archivist's voice cracked with awe. "This station was built not as a court of law, but as a beacon. A place of reassembly. The first flame isn't just myth. It's protocol. We were never meant to judge these beings. We were meant to remember with them." "That's conjecture," Malzek hissed, though his voice now wavered with uncertainty. "You're abandoning the law." Vorthax did not look at him. His thoughts were far away, tangled in a maze of memory and recognition. "No. We are not abandoning the law. We are discovering its origin." Elias stepped closer to the edge of the dome. The field parted for him like mist. His boots touched the tribunal floor again, and with him came Zarkun, walking beside him without chains, without resistance. Not a prisoner now. Something else. The spectators stirred. Some recorded. Others knelt. One ancient species, thought long silent, began humming in deep harmonic chords as if recognizing a song not heard in millennia. Elias kept walking. "There's more," he said. "You know it. You can feel it." The predator stopped. Its clawed fingers reached toward a circular panel embedded in the floor, unnoticed until now. When its hand touched the surface, a bolt of red gold energy erupted upward, casting intricate patterns into the air, an array of celestial bodies, geometric runes, and something at the center. A dark core. Moving. Pulsing. What is that? One of the younger judges asked, voice thin. Zarkun spoke. Abyss. The word silenced the room. Even the translation AI choked before relaying it into the minds of the assembly. Elias stepped forward again, his jaw tight. That's what it was hunting on Dralek for. Not civilians. Not soldiers. Os. Infected. The colony was already gone. That's why he moved so fast. There was no time to explain. No one would have believed him anyway. Are you suggesting, Malzek rasped, that a being capable of mass slaughter was actually performing a cleansing? Yes, Elias said. Because if he hadn't, the infection would have reached the core systems within weeks. And none of us would be standing here now. Coltran's voice quivered. This core. It matches descriptions in the dead sectors. Silent anomalies. Ships disappear without trace. Time fractures. Coordinates that fold in on themselves. The abyss doesn't destroy like a bomb, Elias said. It devours identity. Memory. Meaning. It erases. And the predators, Vorthax murmured, were created to fight it. Elias turned to him. Not created. Awakened. The same way I was. Zarkun raised its gaze to the holographic core, the image of the abyss hovering over the tribunal like a second, dark sun. Its voice thundered again. It returns. Elias closed his eyes. That same flicker pulsed behind his eyelids, like the whisper of a scream. He had felt it on Dralek 4. Felt it again in dreams. A pressure, a wrongness that gnawed at the edges of reality like rot beneath the skin. We need the flame, he said. The bond. It's not symbolic. It's functional. One cannot perceive the abyss alone. The predator sees its form. The human sees its intent. Only together can we hunt it. That's ridiculous, Malzek snapped. You're fabricating cosmic myth into military doctrine. Am I? Elias asked. Then explain why the tribunal defenses never activated against him once the bond flared. Explain why a station built by your ancestors just revealed a countermeasure platform designed not for political trials, but for war. At his words, the ceiling split open with a hiss. From above, a crystalline mechanism descended, shaped like a crown, suspended in a lattice of light. The predator knelt beneath it. So did Elias. The device did not attack. It connected. Thin beams of white fire extended from the mechanism, striking both man and alien in their foreheads. Neither flinched. The chamber dimmed. In that moment, everyone inside felt it. A memory not their own. Planets burning. Shapes with no name rising from beneath oceans of glass. Human ancestors, wearing armor etched in the same runes as the predator's bones, standing shoulder to shoulder with the creatures once feared. Not as weapons. As brothers. One flame. Two vessels. The projection faded. Elias opened his eyes. They glowed faintly with the same ember that burned in Zarkun's. Then the tremor hit. The tribunal chamber shook. Lights flickered. Sirens failed to initialize. Something had slipped beneath the system's defenses, ignoring protocols, bypassing security. The holographic core above them flared black. What was that? Someone shouted. Coltran's trembling fingers danced over his interface. A signal from the galactic core. No origin point. No source. Matches. It matches the abyss harmonics. They know we've remembered, Elias whispered. And now they're moving. We're not prepared, one judge muttered. We were never meant to be alone, Elias said. He turned to Vorthax. Rescind the execution order. Reinstate the pact. Authorize reconnection of the Flameborn protocol. Let him fight beside me. Malzek stepped forward, blade now drawn. This is blasphemy. The law is sacred. You cannot rewrite it on superstition and firelight. I'm not rewriting it, Elias said. I'm remembering it. Malzek lunged, his limbs snapping into rapid motion, weapon crackling as it arced toward Elias's chest. Zarkun moved faster. With a snarl that shook the platform, the predator crossed the distance in a blur. The blade never struck. It shattered against the creature's armored forearm, fragments scattering across the floor. Malzek stumbled backward, dazed, his secondary limbs twitching in confusion. He looked up as Zarkun loomed over him, eyes burning not with rage but judgment. The creature didn't kill him. It raised a single claw and pressed it against Malzek's forehead. Light flared. Malzek screamed. His voice pitched upward, cracking, reversing until it became a wail of something much younger. His body convulsed, limbs shrinking, exoskeleton softening. When the light faded, he was left crumpled on the floor, no longer an adult prosecutor but a twitching larval form, blind and silent. The chamber reeled. None moved to interfere. Elias looked to Vorthax. "You said you were built to uphold the origin of the law," he said. "Well, this is it. The first bond. The first war. The first flame." The judges exchanged no words. Vorthax's mantle rippled once, then settled. "The execution order is rescinded." Another voice added, "The flame protocol is reactivated." A third, "The bond is recognized." Elias turned to Zarkon. His chains were gone. It stepped beside him, no longer prisoner, no longer threat. A partner. A sentinel. The tribunal lights shifted from white to gold. The glyphs etched into the walls shimmered one final time and stilled. The chamber had spoken. The bond was real. But far beyond the stars, the abyss stirred. And this time it remembered them too. The chamber's glow faded to a quiet ember, the kind found in hearths long after the flame had roared. The glyphs that once pulsed across the tribunal walls now stood still, like ancient sentinels returned to sleep, satisfied their duty had been recalled. Elias stood beside Zarkon, and for the first time there was no barrier between them, no energy field, no law, no doubt. Just silence. And recognition. Outside the station, the dying sapphire star flared one last time, as though aware of what had just occurred within the orbiting court. A decision had been made. Not in haste, not in fear, but in truth. The pact was reformed. The flame had returned. And in doing so, it had summoned the attention of what slumbered in the deep. Elias could feel the pull. It wasn't a physical sensation. It wasn't even psychic. It was something deeper. A gravitational tear in memory, in reality, in the very language of meaning. The abyss wasn't a place. It was an infection of understanding. A slow unmaking. And now it was awake. He looked at the predator beside him and Zarkon looked back. There was no need for words. The bond had evolved beyond speech. It was a current flowing between them, shared instinct and memory coiled together like twin helixes of flame. They were more than soldier and weapon. More than man and beast. They were the same war, born in different forms. Coltran approached slowly, his robes trailing across the floor like soft whispers of parchment. "We will provide a ship," the archivist said, "and access to what remains of the ancient records. Most have crumbled into data ash, but what can be salvaged is yours." Elias nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed on the celestial projection still hanging over the central dais. The core of the galaxy was warping, just slightly, just enough for those with the sight to see it. It looked like a wound, deep and patient, waiting to bleed. "I don't need records," Elias said. "I need coordinates." Vorthax drifted forward, mantle stirring with restrained gravity. "Then they will be granted. You are no longer bound by tribunal law. You operate now under a forgotten command. The Flameborn are sovereign." Elias almost laughed. The thought of sovereignty had lost all meaning. What was rank in the face of oblivion? What was command beside something that sought to unmake the very fabric of identity? Still, the weight of the moment found a shape inside him. Not pride. Not duty. Purpose. The same kind he'd felt as a young cadet when Earth first joined the coalition. The kind that had vanished after Dralek 4, when the galaxy turned cold and meaningless. It had returned now, carried in the eyes of a creature once deemed monstrous. He felt it again in the way Zarkon stepped beside him without instruction, ready for whatever came next. The doors to the tribunal hall slid open. No ceremony. No applause. Just function. And waiting beyond them stood a small delegation. Engineers, historians, tacticians. Some human. Most not. All quiet. All aware they were witnessing the rebirth of something they had only ever read about in forbidden texts. Elias walked past them without a word. The ship they provided was angular, obsidian-veined, grown rather than forged, a blend of organic structure and ancient tech. Its systems responded to Elias without prompting. The interface recognized Zarkon's presence as a co-pilot. The Flameborn symbology lit up across the console, pulsing slowly, rhythmically. When they lifted from the hangar, no one stopped them. As they passed into the void, Elias finally let himself breathe. "You were right," he said softly. The Predator turned its head slightly, a question without needing to ask. "We were never supposed to fight alone." Zarkon tapped 3 claws into the interface. The star map bloomed open like a flower, then twisted. One sector dimmed. Not blinking. Not pinging. Just dim. Like light had forgotten how to reach it. "That's where it begins," Elias said. The ship responded instantly. Time inside warped as they entered transit. Not just through space but something else. Elias felt his memories distorting slightly as though being tested. The ship too was alive. Not fully sentient but aware. It filtered thoughts. Preserved the bond. Shielded them from the abyss's first weapon, forgetting. When they arrived, the stars were gone. They stepped out into a silence that screamed. No wreckage. No signals. Just a dull void pressing against the ship's outer hull like a thought that didn't want to be known. Then Elias saw it. Not a ship. Not a structure. A mouth. Blacker than shadow. Open across light years. Its edges flickered with distortions that refused symmetry. Around it, fragments of things that had once had shape drifted slowly, like bones pulled apart and erased mid-memory. This is it, Elias murmured. Zarkon growled low in his throat, not from fear but recognition. It too had seen this before. Long ago. In the first wars. The abyss didn't attack as armies do. It whispered. I forgot you first. Then it made the world forget you had ever been. The ship's console blinked once. Something had found them. Not with weapons. With thought. Elias felt it press against his mind. Not a voice but a sensation. It wasn't asking questions. It wasn't curious. It was pulling. Gently. Persistently. Undoing the threads of his memory one by one. He gritted his teeth and slammed a hand on the console. A burst of flame-born energy rippled through the cockpit. Zarkon mirrored him, placing both hands into the interface, channeling a kind of resonance Elias couldn't define. The pull weakened. But it was still there. We need to strike now, Elias said. They had no missiles. No kinetic weaponry. This wasn't that kind of war. The Flameborn were weapons. Not because of what they carried, but because of what they remembered. Identity was the blade. Memory was the fire. He opened the chamber at the center of the ship. Inside, a shard of the first flame burned, gifted by the tribunal, drawn from the same vault that powered the ancient courts. It was small. Flickering. But alive. Zarkon reached forward, placing his claw over Elias's hand. Together they pressed the shard into the launch cradle. The moment it locked in, the ship changed. Lights flared. Panels reconfigured. The walls sang. The flame inside them became real. From the belly of the craft, a burst of radiant light surged outward, not a weapon but a signal. Not a blast but a declaration. We are still here. The abyss recoiled. The void shivered. And for the first time in uncounted eons, the blackness remembered fear. Elias felt the heat inside his chest grow. He turned to Zarkon, voice steady. This isn't the end. The predator growled softly, then spoke. It is the beginning. They didn't wait for permission. They accelerated into the void, toward the wound, toward the hunger, toward whatever remained of the first war's echo. Together, bonded by flame, memory, and purpose. The galaxy would remember them again. And this time it would never forget.